All right, can you hear me? Well, thank you guys for having me. I didn't catch your name. Mirnas. Like Mirnas said, my name is Erin. I am here from the American Association of Colleges of Osteopathic Medicine. Little background about me, I was never a pre-med student, so I'll never be as cool as you guys. But I did go to Virginia Tech for undergrad and then went to Clemson for grad school, which is where I studied higher education and student affairs, which kind of landed me in medical schools. So I previously served as the director of admissions at a medical school in South Carolina and have finally made my way up to the DC or DMV area, which is where I now serve ACOM. So how many of you want to be a doctor or a physician? Everyone in the room, almost. You still thinking about it? On the fence? Awesome. So hopefully my goal today is to make sure that you understand both pathways to medicine. In your folder or in your bag, there's a book that has 2 flyers in it, and the most important flyer to me, I really want to highlight, basically goes over what's on this slide, but it has the MD versus DO, pathways to becoming a physician. Really and truly, I can't stress how similar the pathways are, and that's my number one goal for you today, is that when you leave this room, you understand that the pathways are literally identical, with the exception of 2 things, and those 2 things are the 200 hours of osteopathic manipulative medicine training, or OMT, that our students go through, which is really where they delve into the musculoskeletal system and learning how to manipulate the body and basically get it back to health, and use their hands to treat different symptoms. Other than that, our students go through 4 years of medical school, just like an MD would. They pass the same state licensures. Most of them take the same board exam, although our students do still have to take COMLEX, as opposed to the USMLE. But a lot of our students are still taking the USMLE. Prior to 2020, which is when the matches are merging, does everyone know about that? The merged match system? No. Okay, we'll talk about that. And so prior to that, there were 2 match processes, the AOA match, which is the osteopathic match, and the NRMP, which is the allopathic or MD match. About 75% of DO students were entering the NRMP or the allopathic match as it was. And then as of 2020, there will no longer be 2 match systems, so all MD and DO students will be matching into the same exact residencies. So in the past, osteopathic students could choose to go into one of 2 matches. They could go into the MD match or they could go into the DO match. And now everybody will be in the same exact match process, competing for the same exact residencies. So any questions about that and what that looks like for DO students? Sure. So my short answer to that is no. Ultimately, the same exact residencies are available to DO and MD students, just as they were previously. In the past, MD students were not allowed to enter the AOA match, which meant that there were a subset of specialties or subset of residencies that osteopathic students kind of had to themselves, per se. But like I said, anywhere from 70 to 75% of our students were still already going into allopathic residencies and competing with allopathic or MD students for those residencies. So although it is a great unknown per se, the 2020 match, because no one's ever seen it before, what I can tell you is that this past year, 98.57 DO students matched into a residency, as opposed to 93% of MD students matching. Now granted, MD students, there are a lot more MD students than there are DO students, so they have a lot more to match. But that's a pretty good number of students that are matching, and that's a really positive number for the osteopathic world as well. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. So some quick fast facts. I swear every computer I go to has a different font that pulls up instead of the font that I put on there, but we'll work with it. So osteopathic medicine dates back to the 1800s. Sometimes I hear from a lot of students that they think it's a newer way to practicing medicine, but really it goes back way back to the 1800s, was founded by an MD. And basically, this was back in the days of bloodletting and kind of practices in medicine that he just was like, this isn't how we should be treating patients. I don't think this is how this works. So he found a better way and founded the 4 tenets of osteopathic medicine that basically say that the patient should be approached in full assessment of mind, body, and spirit, that the body, structure and function are interrelated, and that the body is capable of self-healing. Now, I think that any physician you talk to, whether they're MD or DO, is basically going to abide by or stand by those philosophies in general. Like, yes, the body can self-heal, and that is the goal of any physician, should be to getting the body back to a state of health. So essentially, those are the 4 tenets. Currently, there are 108,000 fully licensed and active DOs in the country. 1 in 4 physicians in the U.S. is a DO. Has anyone in here ever been treated by a DO or know that they were treated by a DO? Okay. I find that I feel like most students probably have in some time, whether it be when they were younger or now, have probably been treated by a DO and don't even know it. Because at the end of the day, although our students learn 200 extra hours of osteopathic manipulative medicine, truly only about 9% of practicing DOs practice OMT in their day-to-day practice. So you really probably won't see it. They're truly going in and doing their day-to-day just like an MD physician would. So you may not even know that you've been treated by a DO. So this is a photo of, obviously, the United States, but this kind of gives you a map and an idea of where our 35 colleges of osteopathic medicine are. And then they have 55 teaching locations. So this kind of shows where we're at and where our different institutions are. And then to give you a quick rundown of our application cycle coming up this year. Is everyone in the room a senior or juniors? Sophomores? So we still have some time thinking about applying. If you're thinking about applying this coming cycle, what I can tell you for any application cycle is it will always open that first week of May. So this coming year, it's going to open on May 2nd, 2019. So that's the first day that you can go in and open your application and really start to apply. You can submit on May 2nd if you want. However, ACOM suggests submitting when you're ready. So just because it opens on May 2nd doesn't mean you have to submit on May 2nd to be the first one in the cycle. Our colleges don't even get to see the applications until June 14th. So take your time, go in there and really go through it. And the rest of my presentation is really delving into the application and giving you an idea of what our application looks like. So I'll spend some time doing that. And then as far as deadlines go, most of those are college specific. However, most of our colleges do maintain that February 1 deadline of getting everything in. And then they do have secondary applications, and their secondary application deadlines will vary depending on the college, and all of that can be found on choosedo.org. Any questions so far? Feel free to stop me at any point. We good? Okay. Applying through Mccomas. So Mccomas and Mcas are truly identical, almost. Couple of differences, but ultimately we're going to learn all about you in one application and send that off to the schools. Has anyone already gone through an application process? No? Okay. So applying through Mccomas, you'll go in on May 2nd. Right now you cannot, if you were to go on to Mccomas tonight, you could not do anything. It is closed from now until May 2nd, which is, 2 weeks from now? A little less than 2 weeks. But ultimately, once you are able to enter on May 2nd, there are 4 core sections to the application. So we've got your personal information, which is going to be, who are you? Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Where are your parents from? Where were you born? How do you identify? Basic biographic information. Where did you go to high school? Academic history, that's where we're going to delve into the college timeline for you. So if you went to University of Maryland, which obviously all of you are here, but if you went to prior colleges, so if you did any work at a community college, or if you transferred to UMD, or if you pursue a master's program after UMD, we'll ask for transcripts from all of those colleges. So even if you only spent a semester there, doesn't matter. We have to know all of it. So you'll enter all of that in there. Our number one, and we're going to delve into this more, Mcat scores get entered there. Transcript entry is probably the most tedious part of any application. Supporting information is where we're going to get letters of rec from all of your recommendees. So every college is going to require different things, but generally speaking, it'll be from a physician, whether that be MD or DO, and someone in your college. Does UMD have a committee? So your committee would go there. Your personal statement, why medicine, and then different program materials, which we'll delve into. So I think I kind of already glazed over this, but the section 1 of our application is that personal information. We're going to get a lot of contact information here, but the number one thing that we always want to highlight here is the advisor release. So I work a lot with advisors, and they all want to know how their students are doing. And this is kind of where you let them know how you're doing. So if you're working closely with your advisor or advisors, this release allows them to see where you are in the application process and whether you've been admitted or accepted to different institutions, offered interviews at different institutions. So this is completely up to you. I know advisors love to know where you are in the process because it helps them kind of advise you on what your next step should be as an applicant. But you're obviously allowed to say no. So if you don't want them to know that information, you would say no here. But that is one of the important releases that is in the personal information piece of our application of the 4 core sections. In section 2, that's your academic history. So I mentioned earlier that this may be the most tedious part of the application because we really encourage students to download their transcript history from every institution, which I know can sometimes be a bear to get those transcripts. But you can use unofficial transcripts here to save yourself some money. But you're really going to go in, and when you download it from the University of Maryland College Park, you're going to enter everything from freshman year back in fall of I don't know what date it would be, but 2013, 14. And you'll go in and you'll put every single course that you took and the grade that you received in that course one by one. Our team, once you've submitted, is going to get your official transcripts and basically verify that everything that you entered is correct. So that's how that works. Any questions about that? No? Pretty straightforward, yeah.
What about like AP classes?
Yep, so that gets entered in the same exact way, exactly how it appears on your transcript. So UMD is probably going to say, okay, she had AP history and passed it in whenever you did that. But exactly how it appears on your transcript should be how you enter it into the application. Yeah. Yeah, so it'll be entered in exactly as it appears on your transcript. So if it says winter of 2016, you'll put winter semester of 2016.
So it used to be that when you took a class twice, and let's say you got, it used to be that like higher grade counted, but
Yep.
now I think it's the average, right?
You're correct, yeah. So now you will see both. So what she's referring to is there used to be grade replacement. So if you, freshman year, we know you're all getting acclimated to campus and you bomb a course. And then you retake it your junior year because now you're acclimated to life, you know how to balance your time a little bit better, and you rock it out and get an A. In the past, we would only see the A because on our coursework it would say repeated as opposed to showing the F or whatever you did in that first course. But now we're going to see both. So we'll see the F and the A, and that'll average to a C-ish. That's how we're going to see it now, which is exactly how Mcas does it. Yeah.
What if you took the class again, but the first time you had withdrawn from it and you didn't
Yep, it'll show on the transcript, and the first time will show as a W, which can be seen good and bad. It just depends. My number one suggestion to students is if you had a semester that just wasn't great, explain that to colleges, because we understand, all of our colleges understand that life happens. They were there at some point in their life. So if there's a spot in the application where you can kind of explain that, I would take the opportunity to do that and say, I had X, Y, and Z going on in my life, and this can kind of explain that semester for me. That's normal. Everybody has that happen. Good? Awesome questions. So MCAT, this can be a little bit of a hiccup for some of our students because unlike AMCAS, we can't just pull directly from the AAMC. We're not the same association. So you do have to request that Mcat Scores get sent to us. It's a pretty easy process. But generally speaking, you'll just go in and put your date of birth, your AAMC ID into the Mccomas application, and then you have to go over to the AAMC and use their online reporting system and ask that they get sent to Mccomas as a designation. But once you've done that, the scores will get sent directly to Mccomas, and Mccomas will verify your scores and send them off to the colleges that you select to have them sent to. On to section 3, your supporting information, which is where your letters of rec, your experiences, achievements, and personal statement. You could say this is the most fun part of the application because we really get to learn about who you are and what you did in your college experience and really why you want to go into medicine. So letters of rec, we talked about that. My number one suggestion here is if you're still in your sophomore or junior years, really make sure that you're connecting with certain members of faculty on campus, whether that means going to their office hours and really getting to know them so that you can ask for positive letters of recommendation when the time comes. This can be a hurdle for some of our students, but for the most part, as long as you're developing strong relationships with at least one member or faculty member, and for you guys, you have the benefit of having the committee, which means they'll probably interview you at some point, and that oftentimes really helps. You're laughing. Are they not going to interview you? Yeah. Oh. I can tell you that the committee is seen as a really positive thing on the side of the medical schools because they really get a full scope of who you are and know what an interview looks like. So it can be a really positive thing to have committees, and it can really help with the letters of rec piece. Hey guys, how are you? You're fine. So you'll get your letters of rec. You will want to get a physician letter of rec, whether that be MD or DO. So find someone to shadow and really get to know them as much as you can throughout your shadowing experience, or whether you do an internship like you guys had mentioned earlier with an ophthalmology clinic. Wherever you can get some healthcare experience, and then your experiences is really your resume. So we're never really going to see your full resume. I know you've probably worked really hard on your resume and spent a lot of time making sure that it's robust, but a medical school will really never see your resume. You'll actually go in and enter it in line by line as experiences. You'll let us know how much time you spent on different activities, whether that be the Premed Society, Relay for Life, Dance Marathon, whatever you were involved in, that's where all of this will get entered in. Generally speaking, we say don't put high school things on there unless they were like super superior, like, I don't know, you won some award with NASA in high school, that would be really cool. But generally speaking, we say just stick to your college experiences here.
What if you started something in high school?
Yep.
Starting point?
Definitely. Yep. And in here you'll get to say when you started some experience and when you finished it. Achievements is where your awards would go. So if you were on Dean's List at UMD or won an award with any honor society here, that sort of thing would get entered in here. Yes, ma'am?
If you receive grants, do you have to enter the amount?
No, you don't have to. I would always put an explanation in there, simply so that in an interview, assuming you're granted an interview by a college, if they wanted to ask you more about it, they would have something to kind of read more about what that grant was. And if, say, it's more of a research-centered or research-based grant, if a clinician is in front of you, they may not be as privy to the research information. It may not stick out to them as much. So that'll help them in reading what you did with that grant or what that grant meant. I can always help an interviewer kind of get to know you and be able to ask really awesome questions of you in the interview. Yeah. Sorry, scholarships. You can definitely enter scholarships in there as an award or achievement. Those are always great to get to know you a little bit more. Anything else? So the personal statement, in the past, this is the most exciting thing for our advisors this year, and hopefully will be most helpful to you as the applicant. But in the past, our personal statement on the Mccomas application was a different character limit than the Mcat application, which meant you either had to write one that was longer and then break it down for ours, or write one that was shorter and then make it longer for the Mcat application. But this year, your personal statement character limit is going to be the same for both Mcat and Mccomas. So you can write identical personal statements and use them for both. But ultimately, this is where we want to learn your why. Why, at the end of the day, do you want to go through 4 years of medical school, 3 to 7 years of a residency program to become a physician? This is your opportunity to really tell us why you are ready to embark on this long journey of becoming a physician and serve in the world of healthcare for the rest of your life. So you have 5,300 characters to tell us that, or tell our medical schools that. Any questions about supporting information in the application? No? Okay. Program materials is where it gets a little more specific per college. So I mentioned that we have 35 colleges that have 55 teaching locations. And this is where you're going to tell us which colleges you want to apply to, and this is where they will specifically tell you what their supporting information may be needed. So some of them will have specific custom questions that are built in, where they say, thank you for applying to AT Still. We really want to know this before you submit your final application to us, and they'll ask specific questions there. Some of them don't have any custom questions, but on each of their pages, before you actually click submit to that institution, you can look at what the next steps in the process would be. So if AT still requires a secondary application, that's where you could click their page and say, okay, that's what I know is coming in the pipeline as far as what's next for applying to this specific institution. And that's the college pages where you can click on that I was kind of talking about there. And here you can see what programs they offer, their prereqs, frequently asked questions, and it kind of welcomes you to their institution. It tells you a little bit more about each of them within the application. This is all prior to submitting. Any questions before I delve into fee waivers? Okay, so fee waivers is something that I get excited about telling students about because I think a lot of students probably qualify without knowing. Before I go into fee waivers, the initial application fee to apply to a College of Osteopathic Medicine is $195. That's a flat fee. It covers your primary application and one designation. So that would mean that I, as Erin, could apply to PCOM in Philadelphia and apply to one of their campuses for $195. If I also wanted to apply to VCOM, which is Edward Via College in Blacksburg, Virginia, if I also wanted to apply there, and Toro in Nevada, each of those is an additional $45. So it would be $90 extra to apply to those two institutions. So it can get expensive. And they're always reach out to colleges and see if they have secondary applications and their fees and if they will cover any of that for you. But the fee waiver is based on household income, and it's all based on the government designations for income. And You can apply for those. This is not a retroactive application though. So if you do want to apply for a fee waiver, you want to do this prior to submitting. So you'll apply, we'll go through all of the information that we need to decide whether you qualify, and then if accepted, or if approved, I should say, you'll get a notification and it will waive that first $195. So it'll cover one designation for you, your initial application and your designation. But if you go ahead and submit and pay the $195 and then decide to apply, it no longer works. So you have to make sure that you apply for the fee waiver prior to submitting your initial application. Okay, so once you've submitted and you're in your Mccomas portal, we always encourage our students to kind of track their progress. Up here you can see what it would look like. You can kind of see if your transcripts are arriving and what that process is looking like. If you have more than one institution on there, it would say 0 of 2 or 1 of 2 or 2 of 2 have arrived, and that's the best way to monitor whether the institutions that you've requested transcripts from have actually followed through. And then your evaluations, you can also monitor those. So if you ask Dr. Smith for an evaluation and for whatever reason he's just sitting on it or she's just sitting on it, you can kind of check back in with Dr. Smith and say, hey, can you send that in for me and make sure that gets in? All right. So kind of just to go over everything we touched on, we always encourage students to apply early, but when they're ready, make sure you fill it out in full. If you're eligible, be sure to fill out that fee waiver. Sending directly to Mccomas all of your transcripts, your Mcat scores, and then always submit and monitor your application. Yeah?
When's the latest you'll be able to take the MCAT in order to submit?
Yeah, that depends on the college. Generally speaking, I would probably say the September dates is either August or September, right? Because it generally speaking takes about a month to get your Mcat score back, and then to get it over to the Mccomas application, be verified, and then get it out to the schools. So if you could take it in the summer months of June, July, that's probably the best time to get it in, because then you'll have it in August and can submit by September and all of that, get the ball rolling. That would be my number one suggestion if you can manage that. But if you take it in August, September, you're not too late per se. You can definitely still get in the cycle. Any other questions for me? I am happy to hang out and talk one-on-one with any of you if you'd like for me to. Otherwise, I really appreciate you guys being here and your time, and I wish you the best of luck in your application cycle. The last piece of advice, or one thing I would say, is that I encourage you to shop for your medical schools just like you shopped for the University of Maryland and finally chose or landed here. Go to MD institutions, go to DO institutions, and really figure out where you fit, where you see yourself enjoying the next 4 years, enjoying as much as you can in medical school, but where you feel at home. So you have options when you're looking at medical schools. There are lots out there, and we understand that DO may not be the path for everybody, but we also understand that MD isn't necessarily the path for everyone. So definitely go out there and visit the institutions as much as you can, and talk with the admissions representatives, talk with the students if you can, and figure out where you see yourself pursuing your medical education, because I do believe that it's a fit for everyone. So as much as you can, do that, attend fairs, because you'll know what's right for you. So thank you guys so much.